You and I are constantly bombarded by misinformation from politicians, celebrities, and media personalities who demonize guns and gun owners. Their accounts are contrary to my experience as a responsible gun owner, a retired police officer, and a professional competitive shooter. I have listened to their lies and I've taken their punches, but I refuse to stay silent any longer because I know a lot of women who have something to say and they won in the game. They're ready to play offense with the truth.
The truth is, we all want the same thing: to protect ourselves, our families, and to be safe in our communities. The DC Project is a nationwide grassroots organization made up of women from every demographic. We come from all different walks of life, but we are united in preserving our Second Amendment rights. As we share our experiences, we push back against gun control lies and oppose those who demand our rights be restricted.
As an immigrant from Venezuela, I saw how easy it was for freedom to die. My family and I watched tyranny destroy our home. In Venezuela, the media, celebrities, and politicians repeated the same anti-gun messages until people found it normal and acceptable to give up their freedoms. The reality is, none of it is normal or acceptable. Hungry and helpless, Venezuelans are now unable to protect themselves. Now, as a proud American, I am determined to guard against the same things happening here.
We constantly hear about common sense gun control, like universal background checks, banning assault weapons, ghost guns, high-capacity magazines, and gun show loopholes. Every city that is facing massive crime waves have put these policies into place. Common sense tells me that they don't work. So why do people still believe the idea that those policies save lives? Actual common sense is holding criminals accountable, not letting them out of jail or encouraging them to be more confrontational. Common sense is not stealing the right of the American people to protect themselves. This is the message that America needs to hear.
The DC Project works to reduce firearm accidents by campaigning for education in schools. We counter the false gun control lies by testifying in hearings and meeting our legislators. We equip our friends, our families, and our communities to know the truth. Gun owners are good people.
America is a beacon of freedom. The Second Amendment is vital piece in ensuring that our kids can have a free country to grow up in. We stand with the lawmakers who support the Constitution, and we provide armor from the attacks by the gun control lobby.
Join the DC Project today. Become a member, donate, or subscribe to our newsletter for updates on how we educate, advocate, and preserve our Second Amendment rights for generations to come.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Shooter standby.
You hit the radio bullseye. And the home for everything Second Amendment, concealed carry, the latest gear, reciprocity, legislation, the right to self-protection, and it shall not be infringed. This is Eye on the Target Radio with your hosts, Rob and Amanda.
Well, wow, Rob. I have been looking through Second Amendment stuff this weekend, and there is so much going on. So it's
It's
really
going to
kind
be
of
going on for the next couple of years.
I
The
I
Supreme
think
Court
so.
said go, and then they shut the starting gun off at the end of June.
And that's exactly how I feel like, So I'm on like these reminder emails just so that you know what's out there and who's doing what and that kind of thing. And it's like, wowza, does that give you a ton of information that is happening. There is just so much,
you know,
and everybody's got their own spin on it.
I mean, everything looks to me like it's going to roll back way past 1962 again. So you'll be able to buy a gun in the mail and have it sent to your house and all that stuff eventually.
Yeah, there'd be an eventually. How long do you think it'll take? A couple years before they
I
get
don't
to
know,
that?
but it's one of them things that every new lawsuit opens the door to another one. It's a little more taking more and more of this restriction back that we've had over the years.
So the Bruin opened the door in a manner to where it is just phenomenal as you watch and as you see how different people think
Well,
about it.
the thing
Because
is,
you're like, oh, it just says this, and then all of a sudden it's like, but no, maybe this. Oh, what about that?
well, the thing is, we are not trained to think like that. We cannot. We are. I guess we have been under the thumb of oppression for so long
We're not
that we
nimble
believe that
minded.
we need this thumb to hold us down, or we'll get out of hand. Um,
Well, there is that. And so it's like, you're right. If you've lived inside a box, and we have, whatever that box is, you've lived inside a box for so long that when someone says be free, you're like, okay, I can be free inside my box.
I got no place to go or nothing
I'll
to
put a
do.
hole in my box and I'll go outside and then I'll go back in my box.
Right.
Right? I mean, you don't really think about what is that really really mean?
It's like going to the city and seeing two people sitting on a balcony that are just big enough for them to be on the balcony instead of actually going out and experiencing the city.
Right.
But no, we think we need gun laws because we've had gun laws. So if
Right.
we don't have gun laws, maybe we need to think about that when someone does something bad to us, that we have laws that stop that from happening at least a second time. They may have been able to do it once, but they will not allow them to do it
So
again.
so instead, when people say, we need gun laws, we're like, well, no, we actually need criminal reform. Right. And the thing is that we'd gone in the pendulum on criminals and criminal reform had gone to well, it wasn't really their fault that they did whatever the horrendous thing was, because they stubbed their toe when they were 3, and that has
Right.
that is
The store was out of cornflakes when they went there this morning, and that started their bad day off.
right. Right. And and that's it. I'm not sure the cornflakes defense is going to work soon.
It did work though in California a couple
did.
different times. So it's as to whether or not they're going to tighten that up, I don't know. But
I think they're not going to have much of a choice, because I was watching the news. And as I was watching the news, they're talking about crime in New York and New York City, and that the crime is climbing it now in the same manner that it climbed in the 1970s. In the 1970s, we were into that whole kumbaya, free love, policemen are bad. I mean, that was when they took it from officer to cop to pig to to whatever derogatory term that they could use for an officer, that society still knows in the back of their head, oh, they're talking about a police officer. And then society swung away from that, and then it's like some of the major cities, they've gone back to it.
I don't think we ever got back to it. we swung away from it, and then we're coming back at it a second time.
Right.
Like a pendulum, we didn't go clear back to where we started. We're slowing down, so swinging here and there. But there's a lot of things to it, though, that we're going to need to think of as a society. And the guns are bad is not the answer. It's got to be something else to that. And I mean, I'm waiting for when they get to the NFA stuff, and then all the little old men who brought something back from World War II start digging their stuff out that they've been afraid to show anybody for the last
for years,
85 years.
and years and years. Yeah, you're right. I mean, because there's been that. I was talking to somebody the other day, and that somebody, and I'll be darned, and I don't remember who it was, but I do remember that I told them that they needed to zip it. They were talking about someone in their family had a gun that when you pulled the trigger, it was full auto, and that it was grandfathered. I was like, if it does not have the paperwork and the tax stamp, there is no grandfathering. So it is either broken or it's illegal. There is no other option. And so if it's broken,
it's still illegal. So
you need to fix it. And if it's illegal, you need to zip it, right? whatever that is. But you shouldn't. And this person, I do remember the fact that this is the first time I'd met this person. And so part of the conversation was, and until you identify all of that, you need to be judicious to who you talk to about it, because it could give you a lot of grief. And they just kind of looked shocked at me. Yeah, they just looked shocked. And it was like, well, you're going to have to find a gunsmith that you trust to figure out whether it's broken or whether it is something that you're going to have to identify whether it's a future income opportunity should the NFA go away.
But I mean, that's the thing, is there's a lot of stuff out there that just because it's illegal doesn't mean somebody don't have
doesn't
one
have
or two.
it. How many guns does the government think that are full auto that are out in free range?
They believe there's about 770,000 illegal machine guns out there somewhere.
750,000.
And that's they're not saying whether that's just those little pieces that they classify as a machine gun or the whole thing or Tommy guns or whatever. I mean, and I have a lot of friends that are old, and they tell about right after the war that everybody had something that they didn't know what to do with. I mean, they were trying to trade you a Tommy gun for putting a trailer hitch on your Buick or something, and that's like it's a little interesting. Yeah, so one of our listeners is like, okay, even if they make everything illegal, how are they going to? I mean, frankly, in summary, how are you going to make criminals understand that crime is already illegal? How do you stop pull their
them
heads off?
Okay, we're not going there again. There needs to be a crime and punishment justice system that has
right. Well, the thing is, if you do something and you're going to stay in jail forever or whatever, then you somewhat will maybe deter you from the fact that now you're out before the paperwork's all done to put you in there, and
that is exactly it. I mean, I know we've got one of the stories about a criminal that had slipped through the cracks in the California justice system, that the family of the criminal and the family of the significant other of the criminal both went to that probation officer and said, you've got a problem with this guy. And the probation officer was like, well, I've lost contact with him, so there's not anything I can do. Well, yeah, there is. And you ought to do it. And because they didn't do it, then bad things subsequently happened.
Old TV shows where they actually went out and did police work and found the bad guy.
If nothing else, make it worth Dog the Bounty Hunters. Make it worth his while to go find him, It'd make good TV.
Google him and he probably shows up where he's at 3 times a week anyway.
Probably make good TV, Track
down on this bowling league.
Track down his Netflix account, right? And then they There you go. I'm pretty sure that, his Amazon Prime knows exactly where to deliver his stuff, and his Netflix account knows where it's been activated from, right? I mean, we live now in a technology world where they can identify where your cell phone pings as to which tower. They got a pretty good idea where you
pretty
are.
soon they'll be able to drop a policeman in with a drone like they want to deliver your.
Oh, can you imagine the little bouncy suit you've got to wear to be
Well,
riding with the drone?
back in the old days, Dick Tracy had them like flying trash can things they'd fly around New York City. Maybe
Well,
we'll
I
get
like the
some of
ones
those.
where they open up the suitcase and it turns into the pop-up helicopter. So, I mean, we're getting there with this whole drone world. We really are. I mean, think about it. 2 years ago, Amazon said that they were going to deliver boxes to your doorstep. And we were like, you're insane. How is that going to happen? And they are delivering boxes to people's doorsteps. People have like a little delivery helipad kind of thing. We'll be back right after this.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3 and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Shotgun with Charlie. I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Okay, we are back, and so one of our listeners is like, I want Amazon to deliver ammo. Imagine next day ammo deliveries. I'm telling you, I think that given this Bruin decision, that is decidedly possible. I mean, they're going to get to a spot where they're not going to give us age restrictions on firearms ownership. Thus, they will not give us age restrictions on ammo ownership. I mean, it's going to change. It has the potential to change our world in which we know it right now. And I think that it will take a while for us to really absorb how much change that is. Yeah. So another listener is saying the IRS is hiring criminal investigators empowered to use deadly force. Is this the reason? 87,000 IRS agents, and they're saying that they have to be able to. They're going to be issued a firearm.
They got to work 55 hours, have a firearm, and be willing to use it. So
right. Well, the thing is, it's probably the IRS's. I've given this a little thought. This is the IRS's way of saying you have to be in shape, because if they tell them I'm going to give you a gun and you're going to have to chase a criminal, if you are completely out of shape pencil pusher, you're going to be like, running is not an option for me. So what? So do I really want this?
As an old donut eater, I'm not in shape for that running, jumping, shooting thing.
But you have figured out that you can shoot. And when they're brand new, they're going to think that they got to do a lot of running and jumping before the shooting. You're like, yeah, I'm not running nowhere. So it's just going to be an
Lucky
interesting.
For them, I can't add. I'd get me a new job.
Well, it's going to be an interesting thing, because I mean, people are rolling out the number of bullets that each different government agency has.
They said IRS had 750,000. They ordered 750,000 bullets. Well, that was only 7.8 bullets per new hiree. That's hardly enough to get their gun dirty.
Well, there is that. So which means they're not planning on practicing. They're just planning on using lethal force. So that those of us who are in the gun world are like, that's a problem also. But no, one case,
he's only got 8 bullets.
One of the agencies had bought enough ammunition that it was more ammunition than the United States used in World War II. So one government agency.
Where did all this ammo go to?
I don't know.
Even the Weather Bureau was buying it when Obama was in there. So it's like, where they got all this ammo
stocked
at?
When the government surplus auctions happen, call me.
Because I know the one had bought a bunch of that Hornady zombie ammo that has like the lime green rubber tip in the end.
The zombie, the whole zombie logo on it and everything, Well, you do know that the government had created, they were doing their disaster planning stuff. Which government agency was it? And they said, here's what you do in a zombie apocalypse. So there's a rule set of instructions. Here's what you do in a flood. Here's what you do in an electrical storm. Here's what you do in a zombie apocalypse.
Well, the thing is the zombies don't have good union representation, so
it can make them look bad.
And everyone else has pretty much got a lawyer that's ready to pounce on them. Right. But the zombies, on the other hand, they're kind of free game, so now people can make fun of them without any.
So it's politically correct that because at one point, they were telling blonde jokes, and then pretty soon the blondes got up in arm, right? And then they were telling, certain ethnic. I mean, when I was a kid, there was a certain ethnic based on the neighborhood across the way, and so you're not allowed to do that anymore. So now you're right, zombies are it. California gun control bill rejuvenated with 185 new amendments. So I think that this is going to be This is a very good point.
They're not going to quit, but they're going to have to be slapped down. And we keep always saying you need to, folks, if you don't belong to it, join like the Second Amendment Foundation,
the NRA,
Firearms Policy Coalition. These guys
Gun
are the
Owners
ones
of
that
America.
are fighting this fight in the courtroom. And these guys, as soon as one thing comes up, they think of 25 other ways to try to get around
They're
it.
playing legal whack-a-mole.
Most of them don't have any standing, but unless they're challenged, they're a free ride for them. So,
right. Yeah. I mean, when you start to look at it, it is, you're seeing story after story of Gun Owners of America, Firearms Policy Coalition, and they're pushing back and they're filing lawsuits and they're finding people with standing and they're saying, I'm not going to take it anymore. So this Bruin thing has rejuvenated them, energized them, driven them. Second Amendment Foundation has sent out another press release this week about lawsuits that they have filed. So once again, to get a case to the Supreme Court is $1 million. But it's right now it is so amazingly active. This Bruin case, if we've said it once, we're going to say it 100 times. This Bruin case has changed history, and we're not going to know how or why to its full depth for years.
Right. I mean, it's a ever changing, and a lot of it is it's going to have to change the mindset of America, because right now we just think we need a new law, but we don't need a new law on the gun side. We need one to cover the other end of whatever the issue may be at that point.
Right. Exactly. I mean, so it's just, you sit and you ponder it. And I think that one of the points you made earlier is really worth repeating. And that is that we're not yet at a spot where our mind is nimble enough to be able to roll around a topic and look at it from all different directions and what that impact is. I mean, I think that's one of the beauties of who Anton Scalia was, because he had the ability to look at something and then look at the far-reaching implications. And it was like, that's, he just sits back and contemplates it. And it's not work, but it's hard work, because you've got to be mentally exhausted trying to think about it.
It's almost like you have to think at the, I guess, farcical side of everything. How far can you go before it's comical?
Right.
And then pull back just a little bit, and there is where reality is at a spot.
So for someone like me who is a self-proclaimed linear thinker, I have to hit every step to go there. And so it is almost impossible for me to mentally get to where some of these things are. But as soon as I see them, I'm like, whoa, okay, I get that. And then I can see 2 or 3 steps past them. But I don't see that I'm at that stepping stone until I'm really at that stepping stone.
The best part of this...
You're going to tell me the best part when we come back right after this.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Suffolcool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Shotgun with Charlie. I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the backseat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
Hi, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. I wanted to let you know that the show you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can check out all the shows on the network by going to selfdefenseradio.net or tune in for more on Self-Defense Mondays on Karma Radio, krmaradio.com.
Okay, we are back. I have to tell you that today I received a text and an article from none other than the Dick Heller of Heller versus DC. So when Dick Heller says, "Hey, you need to read this," the funny part is he sent me an article, and the article was published by NPR. So now think about that. So now there is a Dick Heller is sending you something. It is through NPR, which never has anything good to say about on the gun front. And so they are talking about Dick Heller on NPR. So this is once again changing the dynamic. If NPR is looking at it going, hey, maybe we need to be on the correct side of history.
Everybody is looking at it. They may not like what they're seeing, but they're looking at it. But what I was saying earlier, though, was about the fact that if you look on YouTube, there's 5,000 minimum people that are playing around and developing something in their garage, basement, spare bedroom, whatever. Whether it's a weird kind of a bullet, it's some kind of a new gun, it's some kind of ignition system, a trigger, whatever. And as we relax some of this government overreach on these inventors will come out of the woodwork with all new stuff, and some of it will have merit, some of it will be
so we have a new John Browning in the making,
right? I mean, and we don't know, he may live in New York City and he's 8 years old right now, but he's
got it.
He's coming through,
right?
And it's kind of funny when we talk to Rob Pincus and his group of gun.
Oh, the 3D printer gun builders,
they're not all just 3D printer gun builders, but when they go down to St. Augustine and do their thing, I mean, some of them build their stuff the old-fashioned way with a milling machine, and some of them are using a bar of soap and two wooden blocks. You never know. But
you can't You can't tell. I'm telling you, that is an event that we're going to have to clear the decks to show up to, just to see what they're doing. And I mean, it's sort of like going, if you're a car person, it's sort of like going to see the young kids playing with cars that are fixing things up, and you go there and they're not the $100,000 cars, and they're not the beautiful cars, but they're creative, they're paid for, they're fun,
Right.
and
It's an old car that was a yard art at one time and been resurrected, and they're trying to get it moving, and they show a lot of initiative doing it.
exactly, and that's sort of what I see in these 3D printing matches, or what are they call them, the gun builder. So you can, it doesn't have to be 3D printed, you're right, but in my head they're 3D printed. So but these builders matches is the same kind of stuff, where they're creative and they're young, and they're not stuck on that. We don't do it like that.
Well, this is the way it's always been done.
Right.
They're thinking, why didn't we do it this way, or why haven't we tried it that way?
Or I'm going to build it out of this because I don't have any of that. I mean, in a lot of cases, it is not creativity.
Well, I don't know nothing about that, but I do know about this.
I mean, a lot of creativity comes from supply and demand, and lack of supply, and the demand to build something with the lack of supply. So yeah, it's interesting. It's absolutely interesting. So going back to the Heller story, because I jumped ahead of you. Just going back to the Heller story, the interesting thing is that when Heller filed his lawsuit, it took him till 2003 to get it to the Supreme Court for it to start working up through the system, and 2008 for them to make a decision on the Heller case. Prior to that, the words militia they would consider that a militia clause, and so it was it took a while, and it took the Heller decision that happened in 2008 for us to get that the words a well-regulated militia, the definition has evolved over time, but the definition as it was intended, as it was written then, was all y'all, and well-regulated meant that you had supplies, so that it was a well supplied all you all, right? It wasn't the military, it was everybody that thought that they could defend themselves, defend their country, defend their city, defend something. And because the Second Amendment, it's really, really a small set of words. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And so in the Heller decision, they did say that Dick Heller and that all of us could have guns in our home. Well, Clarence Thomas in this Bruin decision expanded things out much, much bigger, and we're going to evolve and to discover exactly what that is. So Dick Heller ends this with saying that he believes that gun laws should be even more relaxed, that he's not satisfied with the state of gun rights in the United States. The stand your ground laws in nearly 24 states, for example, have way too many loopholes. And he fears the gains made nearly 15 years ago in the case Heller versus DC, and this recent Bruin case, that we need to stand with it or it can be reversed. And so this is where the battle of the Supreme Court and what do they call that? Stacking the court, adding more Supreme Court justices to it so that they can get a court that does what they want it to do when it's their turn up at bat.
Well, some of it too is if you spend all the time telling children that guns are bad, when they get to be big, they believe guns are bad.
Right.
Since they have no access to the gun one way or other,
Mhm.
they just know what they were told.
Right.
And so we tell them fire is hot, guns are bad. So must be
don't
true.
play on the road. Right. Those are, and I get that. And that's one of the reasons why it is so critical when you're working with parents and grandparents, and they're like, I want to teach little Johnny gun safety. I'm like, yes, we want to. And we want to then take little Johnny out to the range. You want to take him out hunting. You want to take him out, just walk in the woods.
I mean, even if you don't have a spot like that and you just have a gun range you built in the basement and you're shooting a pellet gun at or something, I mean, a couple of cardboard boxes with some cardboard sheets in the bottom of it give you plenty of stopping power. And
to your BB gun and stuff.
They learn to keep the BBs in the box and quit shooting the good stuff off the wall next to it. And
we have stories. We have many, many stories that we're not going to tell here.
Well, it was funny the other day. I had a lady who'd come with her. She had a brand new AR-15, and she was shooting, but for some reason she was shooting way to the right of where. And I couldn't. I looked at the sights looked all right. So I took her gun and shot 2 shots right in the bullseye. So I give it back to her, and I'm standing behind her watching her. And I'm like, are you using the center pin or it had like the 2 sight protectors?
Right.
So she was using the left-hand sight protector as the sight, and that moved the barrel off. So she was shooting way to the right because she was using this.
She wasn't sure which one to use, so she just picked one? Got it.
So she had used this left-hand sight protector, which caused her to shoot to the right a lot. But if you got some pellet gun training in the basement with Grandpa, or you got an air rifle, or what's that, airsoft, that shoots little plastic pellets or whatever, at least it gives you some trigger pull experience. It gives you sight picture experience, and it's a lot of fun because you're hitting things, knocking stuff over, doing different things with it.
Right. I mean, there is that. I mean, and it's good. If nothing else, it's good like Grandpa time. Though I have to say, this is not gun related, but it is Grandpa time. I saw this today and I thought of you immediately. Rob has 3 granddaughters and they're all of the micro size right now. So they're up and mobile and moving and got attitude and all that kind of stuff. Some grandfather put the kid in a trash bag and then held it right around their shoulders and then stuck in the vacuum cleaner and sucked them down into where they were like laminated into a trash bag. And the kids were laughing. And I was like, I could see you doing a science experiment where it's like, here, you want to see this? You want to try this? And here's how vacuum works. Let's talk about this.
How hot you'd be out in the yard at this time.
I just think that it was hysterically funny. I mean, you see them make those bags for when you're trying to pack and compress your luggage, and it's got the little check valve. But the garbage bag where they're just kind of holding around their shoulders, and the next thing you know, it was just I could see you doing that right after you took them down to the basement and we're shooting Necco wafers in the cardboard box with the Ritz crackers work also very, very well.
If you think about it, something that breaks up, whether it's like a charcoal briquette, like those Necco wafers, little cookies, whatever, something, especially stuff you can get cheap that
right.
And a lot of it too, like the crackers and that, when you're done with it, put in the bird feeder. The birds would love to have some chocolate chip cookies. And
there you go, a little bit of crackers. We're all good. We can clean this up. And if you're doing it in the yard, then the birds will take the crackers, and you're all cleaned up anyhow. But it's familiarizing the young people with a hobby or a sport that is your sport.
I mean, I don't know how many of you guys are instructors, but you get someone that comes in and they have BB gun experience or pellet gun experience. It's a lot easier to teach them right away because they already understand how the sight pitch is supposed to be and all that stuff.
Well, it ties sort of to some of those kids who play the video games where they come in and they may not know the name of the gun because the video game calls it a different name, but they know the functionality of it and what it does and how it works and all of those. I think that there's room for all of that. When we come back, we'll talk more.
Honest citizens like you protect themselves every day. We talk about it every week on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Were these gun owners lucky, or did they have a plan? How should we defend the people we love? We discuss recent examples on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Put us in your pocket.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to davenportguns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Suffolcool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough? Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3 and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Shotgun with Charlie. I'm Charlie Cook from Writing Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Writing Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Okay, so we are back. This is an interesting thing, and I can't remember exactly why I went looking for the article. So the FBI has reports on active shooters and active shooter incidents, and when they did, they started publishing these reports, and then they update it. And so they have active shooter incidents started with between 2000 and 2013, and then kept going from there. And from there, then they published additional annual reports about how is that? They underreport like 3 times the number of active shooters stopped by a citizen defender. They underreported by 3 times. It doesn't,
because that doesn't meet their thing to show you that guns are bad.
It doesn't fit into that agenda. So I mean, okay, I remember where I was going with that. So so I was like, I knew I had to look for this article for a reason, but it was just recently in Florida that a bystander stops an active shooter who is getting out of the car, threatening to shoot up the crowd. So, so they stopped this 22-year-old gets out of the car. He's going to shoot everybody up. He gets out with a shotgun, and the police department says the 22-year-old refused to drop the weapon after multiple people confronted him and told him to. That's when the 32-year-old man fired his weapon, hitting the suspect.
So what did you learn from that story?
So the 32-year-old had a concealed carry license. They had to report that. It's sort of like if you're on a motorcycle accident, you were wearing a helmet, right? That's always a standard. They're going to report it. But so this dude gets out of the car threatening to shoot people, and it was a short-barreled shotgun.
The other guy shot him, and no charges are being filed, and they're not looking for any other players in this incident.
Right. And so the first thing that tells me is if
you're going to shoot up the crowd, don't shoot off your mouth. Is
the
first thing.
I would say that
then if you
we're not going to give the criminals that advice. We'll just walk past that.
Then if you're going to shoot the guy, you want to make sure that as he's shooting his mouth off, you move into a position where you get a good
shot. So there is that, and do it in a state where they're not going to prosecute you, because I mean, even in Indiana, they were going to go after that defender.
They seem to be surprised that the guy stuck around, is in the article there.
Right, and they were like, "You remained on the scene, right?" but the So I love this line. This is the line. The Palm Beach County medical examiner is going to determine the official cause of death. Well, the 22-year-old got shot by the 32-year-old when the 22-year-old got out of the car with a shotgun and was threatening to shoot everyone. I think I'm not a doctor. I think we can figure this out, though.
But the thing was, remember that a couple weeks ago, the woman who was at the party or whatever, and
at the graduation party, and
shoots,
and he's shooting at them all, and she pulls her gun out. Yes,
position and shoots them too. So there's a lot of this going around lately.
So that's a point, and the point is that the Indianapolis young man, 22 years old, that defended the mall shooter, that defended the mall. So there was that story. When you start to look at these, they are probably, most of them are not going to be in the FBI crime statistics, because like in this case and the woman at the graduation party's case, they didn't kill
down to one
person, and it was the criminal. So it will not meet the criteria of active shooter. So the data that supports and shows that if you're carrying a gun and use it to defend yourself and others, that you may be able to stop a potential shooting, it's not going to show up in the manner in which one would think that it does, because the thought police can't tell you how many people he would have shot. Does it meet the definition of an active killer situation? But because that was their intent, or since they weren't successful, it doesn't. And so it is just
we're talking about two cases right here. We recently had the one with storekeeper who was knifing the guy who was trying to kill him.
Right.
There was another one just recently, I believe, in the news where the guy came in to rob him and he shot him with a shotgun or something.
Right.
And so
so there were people
all over the place. This stuff we're not seeing it in the mainstream news, but it's
happening
more and more and more. And as word gets out, criminals will start looking for a different job.
Career.
I think
that's exactly the point. But so you have to be prepared that should the fight come to you, that you are skilled enough and armed enough to be the person who stops it. And the common denominator, there is no common denominator, because in those scenarios, there is young, there is old, there is male, there is female. It is you have no control over when the fight comes to you.
Right. That's why when you get up in the morning and put your pants on, you put your gun on with it.
Exactly. So
You don't get to pick that time.
you don't get to pick the time, the place, the circumstances. The only thing you get to pick
If
is
you leave your gun home on the refrigerator, then you'll know that's when it'll happen. It's
could
like,
be.
darn it, I knew it
Darn
was
it.
going to happen.
I own a gun. I own a really good gun for this, just for this circumstance.
Yep.
Hold on, let me go home and get
I
it.
blew my chance at it.
Right. Let me
Well,
go
if you
home
go
and get it.
home and then come back, now you're breaking the law.
Yeah,
So,
well,
see,
it's just
there's all that gray
you're looking for
area
the opportunity to get home. I'm like, just let me go home and get it. Right. I'm not coming back. Right. I'm just going. If I get the opportunity to get out of there, I'm getting out. But no, but it is that point. So last night I was at an event, and there was big conversations about people saying, I'm watching the news and I'm seeing this stuff and I don't like it. And I think
Which story would that be?
well,
Every one of them, or
yeah. Well, we'll stick with crime and punishment. We'll not go with the rest of that. But they're like, I want to go to the range. I want to learn how to shoot. And so, I mean, we pretty much hijacked this event that I was at last night, and there was a whole group of us talking about guns and going to the range and what are the best guns to learn with and what do you teach somebody. And this one guy was hysterically funny because his wife, he says she wants to learn how to shoot, and he says, I've been trying to get her to do that for years. So one guy offers up that maybe she ought to shoot a revolver, and he's like, I've got that. And then somebody else was like, well, what about a 9mm? He's like, I got that. And I said, well, I tend to like, if you're going to start with a semi-auto, because she's kind of a little frail looking. She's small in stature. And so I was like, the Smith & Wesson EZ. He's like, I got that. And I said, we could start it with a 380. He's like, I got that. I said, and then we could work up to the 9mm. He's like, I got that one too. So I have no idea what he's got, but pretty much every point in the conversation was, I finally stopped right there and I was like, they call you a super user. So that's where that's going to be.
He's at least a super owner. We don't know if he shoots.
I don't know if he shoots a lot, but it was pretty interesting. Then he was asking me price of ammo. I was like, I don't know. It moves so fast. Frankly, ammo is one of those things like gasoline. If you need it, you just buy it. And frankly, when you drive by,
and do some shopping, and
when you drive by, you grab a couple and you take it with you.
Think about it when you're looking at it. Is the price of shipping included, or is that additional?
Right, and just do the dollar cost averaging. You're at the store; it's right there. Grab 3 boxes, and move on. And then over time, it'll have been a deal because the price is not going to get less. It really is.
If you got really old weird guns, it's whenever you see bullets, just buy them because you never see them again.
Right. So yeah, they're asking me, and it was like, well, I'm not one that I can tell you what gas costs. Maybe at that moment I'm like, we owe, but other than that, I can't tell you what gas costs, and I can't tell you what ammo costs. We'll be back right after this.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Okay, well, we are back, and there is this poll that is out there, and it's written in Bearing Arms by Cam Edwards, so it's an article, and so the thing about this poll is it's talking about arming teachers, and I am a huge supporter of Faster Saves Lives, Faster Colorado, Faster Arizona, Faster Saves Lives as it goes. And the Faster folks based out of Ohio say that there's a huge demand in knowledge and education associated with arming school teachers, administrators, and the like. So after the Robb Elementary fiasco, I guess you would call it, in Uvalde, Texas, they did a new poll, and this poll says that 45% of the poll's respondents said that they strongly or somewhat strongly approve of arming teachers, while 55% were opposed.
Well, I'm hearing with the people are up in arms about the IRS putting on 87,000 new agents, but yet they're not one new school resource officer.
School resource officer. There's a lot of that. So when you look at it, it's by political party. And so in this poll, they did ask your political persuasion. And so 72% of the Republican respondents said that they were in favor of arming the school administration and the school teachers. And 24% of the Democrat persuasion said that they were in favor. So I'm somewhat surprised that it was 24%, since the Democratic platform is so viciously anti-gun. This is the interesting part. And this is that it's for me and not for thee situation. There is an administrator that has it says that they're a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment. They have joined the National African American Gun Association, obtained the concealed carry license after a domestic violence incident, but hasn't bought a gun. But she will not, and she's in the position of authority, she will not authorize any staff members to carry on campus. So though she says, oh, well, I need to learn all this stuff to protect myself, I'm not going to allow anyone else. Her answer is teachers are already surrogate parents, therapists, nurses, and countless other support roles. And we cannot ask them to take on another role of bodyguard and possibly be faced. And this is really the thought process. Possibly be faced with the responsibility of shooting a scholar, i.e., a student, or a previous scholar, or i.e., a previous student. So she can't ask them to shoot, to potentially defend the current group of scholars and students that she has, because they may be forced to do it against a student, a former or current student. Okay. So they say instead of transferring this dangerous task to teachers, school safety should be the responsible of trained and uniformed officers, because that will mend the relationship between law enforcement, schools, and our communities. Say what? I'm in the say what? So I think that part of what so many of these school administrators miss is that this is an option that could be available to their teachers.
This is that we need to train ourselves that the laws are not about the gun. We need laws about the bad guy, and this is some of this gun thought still.
There may be some of that in the gun thought, but the other part is that we know, and we've seen, and we read these horrific stories of students that are shot and teachers that are shot. And then when they talk about the position that they find them, it is that the students are behind the teacher and the teacher is wrapped around them and the teacher is defending these students with their very bodies. So if they're willing to give their life, shouldn't they have an opportunity to save their life and all of their
Well,
lives?
the thing is, it should be that you should be asked
It should
because
be a
you should be,
choice.
you should have that choice and be able to make an informed decision instead of letting someone make that decision for you. And we have went down the path of I'll do your thinking because it's less painful that way.
I'm going to decide for you that you don't get to decide on this circumstance. And the rules are the rules are the rules, and I'm going to write these rules. And that's the part that I just don't understand. And it's like the school unions are primarily, they seem to be of the liberal persuasion, and because of that those decisions are made, and it's already a done deal.
We have
We've walked away from that.
we came home from World War II, and everybody moved to the suburbs and quit thinking about any of this stuff because someone else was taking care of it for them.
Right.
And you'll see that in the voting. I mean, you pick a team and you vote that team because you don't want to know each and every detail of each player in that.
Right. So you just want to vote a ticket. And so when you vote a ticket, you're voting the ticket because that says that the ticket has already picked who the players are, and I don't have
and
to.
you're relying on them to have made a good decision when in reality all it has to be is someone that is on there, says they're on their team.
On their team. And I agree with that. And so the piece is that if that's the case, then you need to read the rules of that ticket. You need to read everything they stand for because those are the things that they're forcing those players to work toward.
But we prefer not to know. I think they call it blissfully ignorant.
Well, you can't
when
be.
When you don't know and you make a decision, now you feel so much better about yourself than if you
right. I just have to
knew
pick
all
quick.
the details.
Right. I just have to pick quickly, and I'll be good. Right? No, it doesn't. It doesn't work that way, and you've got to look at the platform. I mean, I have spent so much time talking to Jim Irvine from Faster Saves Lives, and he is amazing in his persuasive conversation about why he does, why Faster does, why they do what they do.
If your conversation makes sense because of it makes sense, and then you have all the facts and you understand why it does it, it makes you so much easier for you to explain your position than if you don't believe your own rhetoric or you don't really understand it yourself. And so you've seen people who can sell you, how they say, they can sell ice to an Eskimo or something.
Right. They can convince you that they're standing on tons of it, yet you still need what they have packaged.
Right.
Right.
I mean, it's knowing your product, talking about the points, and then the stuff making sense to you in that same lineup.
Right. Because you can't sell something you don't believe. You really can't. If you don't believe in it.
Yeah. Look at electric cars. They're selling like hotcakes.
I'm telling you, yeah. Well, they are to some groups. But you're not allowed to charge it. So that would be a whole nother.
Here's a cool story. The ATF is making up their own rules as usual.
Right.
And you would think that some of this stuff that we just went through with the West Virginia versus the EPA is going to change some of this.
And it will.
But how long does it take, or what? Here's a gun shop in Florida that was there for 46 years, and they're apparently closing up because the ATF is taking their paperwork from them. Although I believe in this short term, we still have paperwork, but I think that's going away also.
It could be, but so the thing is when they come, if you have abbreviated your state when it says write out your state, that's an error.
But it says in there, in the old days, they would just make you change that stuff and initial it. And stuff.
Hand us a pen and told us to fix it.
Right, and sometimes even if it wasn't my mistake, it was the other guy's mistake, I would have to send him a registered letter to that address that was on the paper.
And say, I need you to come back and fix this.
He had just to change it and initial it and date it, and that was good enough. Now they're saying it was a willful violation, and so they're revoking their licenses for this stuff. So this guy's a third generation gun shop owner.
Right, and none of the violations that they were told that was a willful violation, none of them resulted in someone who shouldn't have had a gun ending up having a gun. So these are
It also
all paperwork issues.
it also says it wasn't one of the 5 things that Biden had outlined in his speech about what he wanted them
So
to
yeah,
start.
so Biden's speech on that, when we come back after the break, we will talk about what Biden's speech says and what was covered.
Honest citizens like you protect themselves every day. We talk about it every week on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Were these gun owners lucky, or did they have a plan? How should we defend the people we love? We discuss recent examples on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Put us in your pocket.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to davenportguns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Hi, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. I wanted to let you know that the show you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can check out all the shows on the network by going to selfdefenseradio.net or tune in for more on Self-Defense Mondays on Karma Radio, krmaradio.com.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Suffolcool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough? Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
So one of our listeners says to support the gun shops, they try to buy something whenever they're in, and whenever they're there, and we're experiencing a war on gun shops. In 11 days, we've In 11 days, we have to deal with new definitions of receiver, but gun shops will need to be perfect in their new paperwork or else get their license revoked. That is exactly the situation that we're facing. So think about it this way: gun shops. So in June of 2021, President Joe Biden announced his zero tolerance policy on guns. He included 5 criteria, which he claimed defined a rogue dealer: transferring a firearm to a prohibited person, failing to run the required background check, falsifying records such as a firearms transaction form, and falsifying includes making a modification. If the customer is supposed to fill out a section and you fix it, that's falsification of a form. Just know that. Failing to respond to an ATF tracing request and refusing to permit ATF to conduct inspection in violation of the law. So recently there was an ATF agent that was caught in the back room taking pictures of records that are not to be permanent records. And so we're waiting to see what happens with that. So the real thing with this is that, okay, so the president said to the ATF, here are the criteria that I want you to go after these gun dealers with. This gun dealer that they're talking to, the IM Gun Repair, did not meet any of those criterias, yet the ATF is shutting them down for paperwork and clerical errors. And so the ATF is revoking licenses. Why are they revoking licenses? Because right now you cannot get a gun if you do not go through, you can't get a new gun if you do not go through a gun shop. I mean, the first time manufactured gun has to be transferred through a dealer. It cannot be an online or face-to-face sales. So, and if they can make it harder for you that your gun shop is not in your backyard, it's now 10 miles out or 20 miles out or a half an hour drive to the city, maybe you won't stop there every opportunity.
It just makes you buy more when you get there because I had to make a special trip.
I had to save up for it, right? but there really is, we're facing a war on guns. And this war on guns is multifaceted, but we're definitely facing a war on guns.
Well, the thing, they try to change the rules to keep you confused. A little bit ago, the guy said, what was it, 7 or 8 days, they're going to be changing the name of definition of what a frame is. If you read the 1968 Gun Control Act, it's kind of funny because the AR-15, the trigger has the serial number on it, but the upper part doesn't. But if you read the 68 Gun Control Act, the upper part is actually the receiver that they talk about, although the part with the serial number has always been a piece treated. On an FAL, they do it completely different. The serial number and the trigger group are not regulated. It's the upper receiver section that is. So.
But it's the part with the serial number is regulated regardless of what part of the gun it really is. So it's just kind of flipping around.
They call it different parts receivers, even though they're not really the receiver.
So. Okay, got it. Yeah. So, and then they're trying to do the 80% and making them a frame or a receiver. So they're trying to redefine this so that the ghost guns and the polymer 80s and those names that you're familiar with, that they will then be considered firearms, have to be serialized and have to be transferred through a dealer.
It was funny. A couple weeks ago, I was reading an article about a guy who was killed, but because on Facebook they can't say killed anymore or dead because it triggers something with it. Now they call him unalived.
Yeah, he was unalived.
That's right. That I didn't understand that. Well, in this article, they changed some of the wording, and it was the same type of thing. I can't remember how it was now. But it was
so they're attempting to create a broad sweeping definition by including items that were not yet the frames or receivers, and by including frame or receiver kits, which is a completely different thing.
But it was funny because they let's see, they would treat non-frames and non-receivers, which
Right.
everything that is not a receiver apparently is a non-receiver.
So my truck is a
So
non-receiver.
yeah.
Is that what you're saying? And my
Right.
spoon.
And your spoon and
Right.
and your
Okay.
pencil and whatever else is out
Okay,
there. So
got it. That's it.
where does
This
that definition
highlighter
stop?
is a non-receiver.
Right.
Got
So
it.
where does that stop at, and how do you?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. But given the West Virginia versus EPA Supreme Court case, the ATF really isn't in a position to redefine these things.
Well,
And
if you
so
look at
they're going to get spanked for it.
if you look at the Khyber Pass area of the world, they don't actually have blueprints, or I don't think they probably even read good.
Okay.
But they can copy any kind of a thing that they find. So when the English would go into that area, they would capture their weapons, and then they would just start making the same thing out of old pieces of train track and tank parts and stuff they could come up with. And so they don't need an 80% printer. They need a guy who's got a dedication to a skill level and a hammer and an anvil and
that's all it
and
is.
a file.
Because
And
you were telling us one time in the history section about guns that would have the correct letters, but the correct letters either on their back.
My
or
neighbor had a 1900 Browning. It was a beautiful gun. I mean, it was in great shape, everything. He had captured it in 1953 in North Korea. And when you look at it, all the writing was laid down on its back and upside down and everything. So the guy would write Browning arms on it, but it didn't mean anything to him. So
I'm just picking up the letter. I'll pick up the letter, and this one, this is the third letter,
Yep.
and
this first one, second one, third one. So they may be laying on their back, they may be upside down. You never knew what was going on. But from a distance, it looked like a beautiful 1900 Browning.
well, and that's kind of cool. Did it have the because there's capture papers that he gets to say that he's allowed to take it home?
I don't know if he had them or not. He was showing to me one day, and he's long gone now, and I have no idea what happened to any of that stuff. But it was just really cool to see this gun that was built somewhere in the Koreas or China or something that by a guy who probably had never shot a gun in his life or something.
But he built it. We'll be right back.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Shotgun with Charlie. I'm Charlie Cook from Writing Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Writing Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Okay, so we are back, and so we're talking about and we'll continue to talk about the Bruin case. It's just gonna be that. So New York,
Man, that's a big one.
it really is. So as part of the Bruin case, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas warned New York and that to not try to declare the entire island of Manhattan as a sensitive place, to make it off limit to carry concealed. And so, because that was part of the dilemma, is that New York says that, well, every place pretty much is a sensitive place because there's some sensitive person there. And so we're going to make it that. And he said, don't do it. But he didn't say anything about the Adirondack Park. And the Adirondack Park is acres and acres and acres of land. Some of it is owned by New York State, and some of it is privately owned land that is in something that has been deemed one of the national parks. So your house, your land, you could own 100 acres, and it could be within the Park Service's portion of a national forest or a national park. So 130,000 residents live in this park. 130,000. And they're saying that the park is a sensitive place, and so you cannot have a gun there. So that means that people who are hunters can't hunt there. That means that people who live there and carry concealed can't carry concealed there. People who run summer camps, they have rifle courses for children. That would be considered a crime. There is a former Winter Olympics park that is inside of Adirondack Park, and so that venue is inside there, and they have an annual biathlon event, which is a skiing and target shooting. It'll be hard when
not no more.
It'll be a skiing, and then we go bang bang with our finger.
Pew pew. I think
Right. Oh, pew pew. Got it. And then right. So, I mean, if the Supreme Court specifically says, "Don't do this," and then they're like, "Oh, he mentioned Manhattan, but he didn't mention this place.
But
We're going to do this."
They are trying everything they can. They throw it out there and see how much trouble they get into. And in the meantime, while they're fighting it out in court, they get a free ride on the fact that
they get to punish these people. Right. It's really crazy. But then the governor, Kathy Hochul, She disagrees with the law, saying that the state-owned, private-owned is acceptable for you to say that they can't carry that. But the state-owned forest preserve land in the park, about 2/5 of the park's area, shouldn't be considered sensitive location. Now, the other 3/5 that are private is privately owned. That's fair game. That is completely fair game. So it is. We're waiting, and
well, like I said, next year's Supreme Court stuff should be much more interesting than what we got so far.
right. But these poor people are going to have to wait a year.
Well, look at the ones when Bill Clinton made it to where you couldn't have a gun within 1,000 feet of a school or something.
And people
so
had
how many
to
people
live next to a school,
right?
And had to move, or had to get rid of their guns, or
had to keep them in the closet and not tell anybody about them, or something.
Yeah, store them at the gun shop. Something. But yeah, the impact sometimes of these laws where they're like, oh, well, we're doing this for the good of the people. No, you're doing it because you're in the alligator death roll, and it's wrong. It is so many levels of wrong.
Right. That's the thing is, you get one person who says I want it, and the other guy says I don't want it, and it's like, who do you side with? It should be the guy who is in the freer decision-making guy.
One would think, but you would also think that they would be slightly guided by what was the Supreme Court decision, and what did the Supreme Court say? I'm going to spank you if you do it.
Right, but by the time the Supreme Court gets around to it, they'll all be out of office, and somebody else
it'll
will
be
get
new ones.
spanking.
And so they're talking about. They're saying that I am not going to be controlled by politicized ultra-right justices. So that's what they think Clarence Thomas is an alt-right politicized justice.
Right, because he really didn't say anything for years and years.
20 years, that man said nothing. 20 years, he was like, yeah, what he said. Yeah, what he said. Nod, I'm on this side. That would be all that he did. And all of a sudden, he is like, here, hold my beer. I'm going in.
Well, the thing was, in the past, he was the young guy, and the other ones got to say what they thought. Now that there's so many new ones in there, he's the old timer, so he's got to speak, because it's not politically correct for the young guy to come in and immediately take over and
step over top of him.
I mean, just think if Kavanaugh was running his mouth, or that other
Amy Coney Barrett,
right? The media would tear them apart because they've overstepped their bounds. They're just new there, but yet they're taking over and doing it the same as they're doing with the Marjorie Taylor Greene and
Boberg.
Both of them are.
How dare they talk?
They just barely have been in there, and yet they're telling everything.
So there you go. So California is in the middle of making everywhere a sensitive place, because then that too that's sort of what New York is doing. So it doesn't make any sense. They're going to get spanked, but it's going to take a while, and there's some poor people that are going to be in the middle of it, and they're going to have to tread water for the year.
Join the Second Amendment Foundation, the
Firearms Policy Coalition, Gun Owners of America, the NRA. Join them, because they are the ones who are defending.
You think about it, for what it costs you for $5 of bullets, you could probably join every one of those organizations for a year, and
right.
For what it costs you for a gun, you can probably get a life membership in most of them.
And a couple of them. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, Second Amendment Foundation, that is the best bargain out there. $150 for a lifetime membership. So you can't beat that deal, and that gives them the head counts that help give them some stability, if you will.
The funny part is, if you're dedicated to your group, I mean, lifetime membership is kind of a misnomer, because you're part of it, but they need more money than that. So if you got extra, they could use it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got extra money, send them an extra 20 or 50 or 100 or something, and
right, do it in a money order, in a with no return address. Just send it, because some of them will then call you and call you and call you and say, I see you have extra dollars. Would you care to release a few more my way? Right? And then they'll call you every night at dinner time to say, I see you have extra dollars.
Or if nothing else, you send it in under the Brady campaigns.
In their name. There you go, right? Shannon Watts. Who's sending this money? Shannon Watts is sending it. And then you send Shannon a gift receipt, right? You have just made a generous donation to the NRA. I've made it under your name. Are you happy with that? Because there is.
So if a couple hundred people a year do that for her, just her taxes will be so much better. 87,000 IRS agents will have something to do then.
Talking to her. That would be it. So, okay, I want to say you're not wrong, and that's amusing. That is decidedly amusing. The way that your mind thinks is not the way that my mind thinks. That is all there is to it. I would be like,
you have to go to the first. You have to go to a line where it's almost comical.
Well,
I think off that just a little bit, because otherwise it's you're thinking the same thing everybody else is thinking, and you need to be way far ahead of that, because
I don't think I have a creative bone in my body. I do not. So we're just heading. Yeah, I am a great mimicker.
Oh, I've seen it. I'm funny as can be when it comes right down to it.
I've seen it someplace else. I can do that. I can copy that. I can mirror it. I can make one look like that.
You give me a couple of black and tans, I could be really funny.
Not anywhere near a microphone. I'm just gonna say there is a whole level of that. So, what if you had to decide between your life and your job? So there are companies.
I hate my jobs anyway, so there would be nothing to that part of it.
It's that I was looking for a job when I found this one, and I'll be looking for one when I find the next one. So, yeah, we've seen Lyft, Uber. There's different companies, and Amazon.
Well, Pizza Hut a couple of years ago had one of their drivers that somebody tried to rob him, and they shot it out with each other. The pizza driver prevailed, and then he lost his job.
So now an Amazon driver is the same circumstances. So he had someone approach him with a knife, and he stopped him. He stopped him, and then because of that, Amazon said, yeah, you're not working for us anymore.
I think that goes in the same category with the guy that was at the party, and the other guy shot his mouth up, said he was going to shoot the place up, and this and that. I mean, whether you work in, whether you're at the party, whatever. We've about had enough of this, and we aren't taking it anymore.
Right.
And so I think that it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, so he didn't say he was terminated. He said he was deactivated. So
the guy with the knife, or the
Amazon? No, the Amazon driver was deactivated from Amazon. So he wasn't a robot. That's like they pulled his batteries. He's deactivated.
Unalive versus deactivated.
Unalive. He's been deactivated. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to davenportguns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Suffolk and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com. a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3 and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
Okay, so so Rob's showing me stuff that listeners are sending him, and it's just not right. We'll just go with it's not right. When they go to who is it, Boris and Natasha? Yeah. So when they get memes with Boris and Natasha, you just gotta laugh, right? So let's see, what do we have? Oh, so let's see. This is an interesting Rob Morris. Rob Morris, who's a frequent contributor here. He also, I co-host with him on self-defense gun stories about once every 6 weeks, that kind of a thing. But he writes for AmmoLand, and he writes for a blog, Slowfax, the Slowfax blog. And this article is kind of interesting. What the news media gets wrong about guns and armed defense. And we know the news media, this is his lead-in line. We know the news media distorts our view of the world. We'll just say yes, indeed they do, right? So you get stuff, and if you don't stop to think about it, you're like, yeah, no, that's not how that works. That's not how any of that works. So there's some of it. And my husband is taken to watching some kind of a programmed news that is on-demand TV, so it's late. And so he'll just watch one from 2 weeks ago, right? And then he knows how it turns out, and he's like, that's not right. Right? And so it's absolutely hysterical to watch news when it's no longer the news, because then you see how much they really got wrong. It really changes. It's going to turn you into Dan Waz, where Dan Waz has this ability to look at the news and identify that they're just pulling your chain. Most of us don't have that ability, but if you're watching 2 weeks old news,
But
you
it's
really
funny
do.
when you watch, especially with Dan commentary on it. I mean, you can see their English is all jacked up. They use a certain kind of a word instead of the real word in the thing.
Yeah, so they're trying to persuade you one way or another, looking impartial, and then using words that are just to drive you to an opinion, in one direction or another. So what the news media gets wrong. Rob's got several topics here, and the first one is that evil exists. I mean, it is not the gun's fault. It is not the car's fault. It is not the lighter's fault. It is the person that is deciding that they are going to commit a crime. They are going to commit a crime against society based on whatever they're facing.
Well, some of that comes down to poor decision making, and they got, I guess, backed into a corner that did not allow them a couple of different avenues of escape, and so they chose poorly at that point. And
and you kind of hope that there is someone who gets to survive the encounter and live to another day that is the innocent victim of that attack, and so has the opportunity to be able to stop the evildoer, as opposed to the other way around.
So, but some of the reason people are so lax, I guess, in what they want to do to the evildoer is the fact that we all have that evildoer in us. We just some control it easier than others. Some think about situations long before it happens and never get into that spot.
No, I think there's a difference between people who, that laws are flexible,
but
then there are people who are just flat out evil. That I could kill you and without caring. I mean, that's it's that empathy thing.
I could be you, but it there's something in there that is I mean, I don't know if it's the fact that my mother gave me a couple different avenues of escape from that, or if I've just, maybe it's once you've been there, it's easier the second time to be harsher and harsher until maybe the first time all you did was beat somebody up or steal their candy bar or their bicycle or something, and the next time you got a little more violent, and so had you been stopped at the first time and penalized in some manner, you wouldn't have escalated to the second or third time.
Now that makes sense to me. That part makes sense, that it is a gradual escalation because you're not going to get caught, you're not going to get in trouble. You didn't get in trouble the last time.
You see some people who they have a 7-year-old that has no penalties. There's no penalties in his lifetime at all because none of it is his fault. It's someone else's fault. Eventually, mom's not going to be there to buffer him from society.
Right.
And so at this point, now he's on number 54. He's built up some of the skill level. And where does he go from here?
Right. And he has no built-in rules. I mean, because when you, and that makes sense to me, because the book that says everything I learned in kindergarten.
I have no formal training. I'm just telling you that I have slept in a Holiday Inn at one time or another.
Got it. So we'll move on. But I think there are so Rob says the media wildly overreports stories where we are the victims of violent crime. But they also horribly underreport where we successfully defended ourselves. And we started the show with that.
Well, that's the thing is they can show you when someone was killed or horribly beaten or drugged behind a car or whatever, because that is the kind of news that draws in the ratings. And I mean, they say California stops when the helicopter takes after the car chase, and everybody just stops to watch the car chase all the time. So that's what we like to do as a thing, and their job is to sell you pretzels and candy bars and whatever else that goes along with it.
Whatever the commercial is, hair care for men, little blue pills.
So the more people that tune in to watch the car chase, the more candy bars they're selling during that hour time And
then that means the news reporter could drive a Maserati as opposed to a Pinto.
Right.
Okay, got it. It all makes sense.
It's a slow downhill slope, but it's there. You can draw that line of the whole thing.
You can get down that line. There you go. So Rob goes on to say that the next heading is violence is sometimes the best answer. And I mean, that needs to be like your T-shirt. I can see there's a logoed T-shirt in your.
What do you think about it? A good solid
future.
backhand will straighten out your disposition. Sometimes it clears your head to realize that you didn't like catching that too well.
I don't want to catch it again, right? That would be.
And so now you choose another path in your life.
That would be like when I walk up to a horse, I walk up and I go way around the backside, so I'm not near that, because all it takes is getting kicked in the hip one time, and it's like, I don't want to be back here. I think I'm going to look the horse in the face, because
if you've ever been bit by a horse, it's not much better than getting kicked by one.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. We'll just say the horses are jerks, but other than that,
they're just like a cat without claws. That's all.
Yeah, and with the same caring and considerate attitude, right? They too know 130 words. They just elect not to use any of them. There you go. So Rob Morris goes on to say armed defense is common. So it's like, this is like the culmination of today's show, because we talked about different people.
The first thing you learn in kindergarten is that the chair works better than using your fist.
Okay.
So if you have to retaliate, you have to. A tool is the best resort, whether it be a hammer or a chair.
Rob needs his own line of T-shirts, one of our listeners says, and his wisdom on T-shirts for sure. That would be scary. Absolutely scary is Rob's wisdom. So anyhow, armed defense is very common. We'll be back, and we're wrapping up the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Check us out on OpsLens. You can see us on On-Demand TV. You can actually see us in studio. Rob is very dynamic while he's sitting here interacting and laughing like a loon. But that's it. So we'll be back next week with more.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3 and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. Realize FAC